This podcast is brought to you by sarahraven.com, which is home to everything you need for a truly beautiful and productive garden. You'll also find great and essential gardening kit and stylish, lovely things to have in your house to bring the outside indoors, all inspired by the garden and the house being tied together. There's also plenty of garden inspiration, how-to videos and specialist growing guides. So head over to sarahraven.com today to discover even more.
Welcome to Grow, Cook, Eat, Arrange with me, Arthur Parkinson, who is guest presenting this episode because this spring I was sent the most beautiful book that focuses on one of my favourite flower families, which are pansies and violas. And I'm delighted to be joined by the author of this beautiful book, Brenna Estrada, who you might know if you follow her Instagram, which is called Three Brothers Bloom, because I believe she has 3 boys. And Brenna can be found growing her beloved pansies and violas on the Camino Islands. Is that how I pronounce it, Brenna?
Camino Island, correct.
Very exotic for violas and pansies, which is the Pacific Northwest. And Brenna is talking to me. It's afternoon where you are, isn't it, Brenna? Or is it morning?
Morning, 7 a.m.
Morning. And it's afternoon here. So I think this is the first Across the Pond podcast we've done. So I'm quite excited to be talking to you, Brenna. It was so wonderful to get your book. And what an achievement to write a book specifically about a flower that you really do love and have cultivated and made sexy and gorgeous to become a cut flower. Because when I first started gardening, I didn't know pansies or violas as anything but a little dinky thing that my mum might buy from the market as a little 6-pack bedding plant. And they were pretty, but I never really noticed them. And then I remember Sarah started growing one called Tiger Eye Red, which I really fell for and I grow every year. But this beautiful book that you've done, it is an encyclopedia and a tribute to all the varieties of the most exquisite little happy faces of violas. So I suppose I should start, Brenna. How did you start gardening and why pansies and violas?
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. I have always grown flowers ever since I was little. You know, the same as you. My mom would take me to nurseries or groceries or hardware stores, and you'd see the little flowers and you'd plant them. The idea of a cutting garden for me was so new. I never knew that was something that existed until much, much later in life. After I'd done a career and I was looking to transition into something else. And then I discovered through Aaron at Floret the idea of a cutting garden. So that kind of found my journey into flowers later in life. Yes, I have 3 boys, the 3 brothers behind the blooms. And when we first started growing the cutting flowers, they were such a big part of it and they were so excited and they wanted to do farmers markets. So we kind of started branching out a bit. And then I discovered the pansy when Erin was doing her trials as a cut flower. And my mind was just blown. I'd never imagined them as anything other than, as you said, these tiny little faces in landscaping, you know, behind a bush, under a shrub. And even the colors, all the colors I'd only seen were the purple or the yellow or the red with a blotch. You know, I had never seen the beautiful shades of pinks and terracottas and, you know, these brilliant burnt sunset reds. And it was really incredible watching her trial them and watching them be used as this and then discovering they had a fragrance. That was another thing I had never known. So she kind of opened up this rabbit hole for me that I really just dove into, and I started growing every variety I could find, which then was another problem because then you realize how hard they are to source. Finding these unique varieties in seed form is really difficult.
The heritage ones over in America.
Yeah, it was really hard. So I tried to find and source, and I think I ended up growing around 200 different varieties through the course of my trials, really seeing where's the fragrance and how well do they do here in the Pacific Northwest and how long can I get these stems, trying different techniques. And I had so many questions and I kept looking for a book and there just wasn't one. The last book was written in the 90s by Rodney Fuller there in the UK. And it is an extraordinary book. I think the best book written on pansies, but it is very information heavy.
Yes, like a lot of the old ones
Correct. I don't think it was very approachable for someone really trying to just get into it and fall in love with pansies. So after years of pulling notes, I hunted down every book I could really find on the pansy and viola that ever been written and just taking notes and pouring it. And I thought, well, goodness, I should probably put this into a book. I'm sure I can't be the only person that has had these questions and that didn't realize there was this whole second life and history to the pansy and viola. So, yeah.
What was it like walking into a publisher's meeting or getting an agent and trying to get them to love your clear love of this plant? Because I know from trying to get ideas in that meeting into book people's heads, they're very reluctant often to put all their eggs in one basket of one subject. Was it difficult to get the book deal?
Very difficult. It was very, very hard. It took me about a year to put together a good proposal because I knew that was going to be key in even getting them to consider it. And then I had to try to find an agent, and that was through the kindness of another author that she introduced me to her agent.
Yeah, often is the case.
Correct. My agent is spectacular, and she really pushed for it, but there were a lot of publishers, the first that flat off just were like, absolutely not. No one cares about a pansy. That's a ridiculous idea. And then there were some that were intrigued, but it was such a gamble. They said there's never been a book on pansies. We have nothing to gauge it by. We have no idea how well it will do. And for me, being a first-time author, that was another factor in it. So it was very difficult really finding its home. And then along came my publisher, which is Timber Press. And they just saw the vision exactly as I saw it, and they were all in, and it was perfect. So
So the book is beautifully done, and it's what I like about it is it's very clear how you are, even though you're selling to markets occasionally and things. What it shows, you're growing them in just simple raised beds.
Yes.
There's not a huge amount of polytunnels going on, so this is a very domestic plant. What point did you think actually it's viable for me to grow pansies and violas to sell as bouquets and little bunches? Has Instagram helped that? Because your Instagram is so, it's like going into a little sweetie shop. When I look at your Instagram, I just like, and that's the joy of these little flowers. They're so animated and almost like they're talking to you. But at what point did you decide this is what I'm going to dedicate my growing space to? Was it a payoff, or was it a bit of a gamble?
It was definitely both. It just kind of evolved on its own. The more I was doing trials, I felt, I need more space. I need more space. And then I was doing it. I felt I wanted it to be very approachable and very accessible for everybody. So I didn't want to use the tools a flower farmer would use, because then my results would be intimidating or inapplicable to a normal home gardener. And I really wanted everyone to see that this flower is completely inclusive to everybody. Everybody can grow this, whether you have a pot on your patio or you're growing them in a tunnel as a flower farmer. They are truly accessible to everybody for at least a small portion of the year. So I tried to be very careful about growing them in a way that everybody could achieve and do the same.
Yeah. I mean, what I love is you flat lay so many beautiful antique varieties that just make you want to, you can just pan through this book and immediately you're drawn to your favourites. But then as we go into it, you've combined them with other flowers as mixed arrangements, which, I don't know that many people who grow violas here. If they're doing cut flowers, I go to quite a few cut flower farms now, teaching and visiting, and there's not that many places I've been to that have got devoted viola beds, but this book will make anybody give them a chance. And you prove that because there's photos of them in mixed bouquets with roses and phlox, and then you've got them with zinnias and bearded iris and in beautiful Dutch still lives. So they're really, really tall. So if someone's a newbie to picking these pansies and violas, are you picking them just as you would a cosmos and a dahlia? You can go right to the base of that plant as long as you leave 2 leaves. Is that how you tend to harvest them? How do you harvest these flowers if you're cutting them for the vase?
So what I have learned both through reading and just through experience is that when you cut them down to the first joint, you get the longest stem, but also when the plant basically tires out, if the end of summer, whether you're not cutting it or just after you finished using it as a cut flower crop, when it's cut down to the first joint, you can add a layer of compost and a huge portion of them will bloom again. They'll send up new basil shoots and they'll go into a second bloom. And it's through this process that I've actually had many pansies perennialize in my garden, and they're now coming back 4 or 5 years, the same plant. And it's
Really?
it's amazing. And it's interesting
Wow.
to watch its shape. It changes into almost like a shrubby plant, but those stems stay just as long throughout the season. And it's really profound to watch.
Do you think that's because you're in a sheltered place? I know your garden's surrounded by pine trees.
Mhm.
So what's it like in the winter? Does it get very cold where you are? Or
For us, normally 20s. We've been getting into the teens more. We'll have some winters where we get into single digits.
okay.
So we are fairly cold. I do on the winters that I feel are really exceptionally cold, especially the winds. I think those very icy winds are really difficult for them. I will do a layer of maybe 3 to 4 inches of just leaves or pine boughs. I have maple trees, and I'll just gather my maple leaves and just cover the beds in maple leaves. And then by the time I bring them off in early spring, everything's almost in bloom already. So it works well.
And regarding your like seed banking of these heritage varieties, so once you manage to get varieties of old pansies and violas, how do you, because your photos are so beautiful, they're like marzipan cakes, like, trifles of pansies all in your raised beds. How do you stop things from cross-pollinating to keep that one variety so you can harvest the seed and keep it going? Or have you got, because I know Josie at Perch Hill, she does with dahlias, she puts little bags over the heads and then lets that one flower head ripen up into a pod. Are you doing that? How do you stop them from just cross-pollinating? Because pansies do like to do that, don't they?
They absolutely do. So I haven't done much seed collection for the purpose of regrowing the seed. The hybrids won't come back true to seed, and I have them grown all over. The varieties I do try to collect seed from, I do isolate. I keep them completely isolated so that there is no chance of cross-pollinating. But it definitely is a thing. If you're growing them all out in the open, you're going to get a spectacular surprise with your seed.
I've learned to, because I love Viola Tiger Eye Red, so that's the only one I tend to grow. And my mum actually loves that too, so she keeps the seed each year. And we're managing to get really lovely plants from home harvested seed. But Josie Lewis, Sarah's head gardener, I just mentioned, I told her I was doing this podcast with you, and she said, what are your best germination tips? Because sometimes bought seed can be quite slow to germinate. And I've found that, in fact, I got so impatient one year, I remember chucking all the seed trays into a trug, and I used the compost for something else. And then I got all little pansies germinating underneath my cosmos seedlings that I'd pricked out. And then, of course, I pricked them out, but it was several weeks. Sometimes they can be quite slow to germinate, I find. I don't know if you find that.
I absolutely do. It depends on the seed stock. And pansy seed, I store mine in my flower cooler. So basically the temperature of a refrigerator, and it will keep for 4 to 5 years. But as with all seed, the longer you keep it, the less viable it's going to be. Most of my pansy seed germinates in 7 to 10 days. It's rare for it to take longer. And I do that by using humidity domes. I germinate it on the surface of the soil in full light. I know many people...
So no covering.
Yeah,
no covering
I know
with
a lot of
anything.
people
Right.
say darkness, but for me, every pansy in that book was done on the surface in full light. And the temperature for us is 60 to 68 Fahrenheit. And I did put the Celsius temperature in there. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I have found that is definitely the fastest way to get them to germinate. But I do have some, 1-2 months later, I'll have a tray with pansies, and then there'll be this tiny sprout coming up. So they can take a while. If you are going to dump the soil, I always say dump it somewhere you don't mind pansies, because they'll probably pop up later.
Yeah, the seed sowing in the fridge, I think, is so important for so many things. So many people forget that because, of course, if you're taking a seed out from the fridge, it's going to feel warmer and it'll think in its little seed cell membrane that springs arrive. So that's interesting. And I must talk to you about the arranging. I love the idea of you taking all these pansies to market like a Victorian flower lady selling them. Over in England, I know they used to harvest the wild violets and they'd all be taken to London from the English countryside. Are people taken aback when they see you selling pansies and violas? Because people aren't used to seeing them as cut flowers, I'm sure. And what kind of market have you been able to curate by doing them, being specialist in them?
Yeah, absolutely. People are very shocked. Usually they ask if they're real. They ask, what is that flower?
Yeah.
Is that actually a pansy? And then I'll often, take the apart and show them the stem, that it is sturdy. It's this solid, sturdy, long stem that you can wiggle around. So it's fun to see people's reaction to them as cut flowers. They do great in bouquets. They do great in Wedding bouquets, as long as they're properly hydrated, I get a lot of requests for them in wedding bouquets. I have fellow flower farmers that grow mass crops of them in high tunnels and down in Arizona, down in Texas, and they do fantastic at market. In fact, our cut flower market here, even out north towards Tennessee on the East Coast, there's a huge demand for them. People love the bouquets of cut pansies. They do really great in a vase. And I know there's many flowers where the buds will keep opening in a vase, but I have found with pansies, they'll actually keep making new buds that will then keep opening in a vase. It's very impressive. Yeah.
So they have a very reliable vase life. And when you say giving them a hydration, so you'd always pick the night before wedding and then they'd have a long drink and then you'd do them in the bouquet.
Yes. The quickest turnaround I would do would be picking in the morning and at least 4 hours in a refrigerator with a bucket of water before I'd begin doing any kind of work with them. Yeah.
Yeah. And how, while I've got you talking about the American cut flower movement, which has been so driven by Fluorette Flower and, Instagram has really driven it for you as it has in the UK, is it still something that you feel people are committed to and want? Is it growing? Is it kind of at a place where you can meet demand? How is it being a cut flower grower in the US at the moment?
I think it's definitely growing. We're in a really great area for it. Up where I live, near the Skagit Valley, near where Fluorette is, it really feels like cut flower hub. There's so many of us. It's such a great climate. But you see them everywhere. And as I travel, I'll see small cut flower farms and small local growers. And I think the climate change has a lot to do with it too. People are realizing the effects of, flying flowers up from Ecuador, of trucking flowers all over, that there's something to be said for not just supporting a local family, a local business, but flowers that are seasonal. These flowers, they thrive. They're meant to grow in these areas. They're meant to grow in this weather. You don't have to worry about them perishing through, transport and trucking. So it's a really wonderful thing, and I hope it continues to grow. And I would even just home gardeners, just your own little cutting garden for your own pleasure of bringing flowers indoors. It's very achievable now.
Yeah, absolutely, particularly with violas and pansies, because they are traditionally a hanging basket plant, a window box plant. They are a small garden favourite. And if what you're doing in this book, if people can be given confidence rather than just deadheading them, as my nana used to do, if we learn to cut them as cut flowers, they'll be in the pots for much longer, won't they?
Absolutely. And I mean, they're obviously a very good landscaping flower. They're fantastic in pots. They're fantastic under shrubs. It's just there's this other side in addition, there's also the cut flower side. So I just hope people can see that worth of them as well.
Are there any pests or particular diseases that you've found that they're prone to?
Yes.
Sometimes I find that they do suffer if it's a very wet winter over here and they're in the pots and they're quite soggy. That can cause black and yellowing leaves. What have you found any tips or tricks with aiding that kind of thing?
Yes, for us, particularly with the amount of rain we get and the fluctuating temperatures here in the Pacific Northwest, root rot and leaf spot are really, really big for us.
Spot, yeah.
So I have to be very careful about that. They almost always recover, though, which is nice, from the leaf spot. Yeah. Deer love them. So mine are fenced away from the deer. And then slugs. Slugs are really, I think, the biggest enemy of pansies and violas. They're persistent. So I ended up getting a pair of ducks, which do endless slug patrol.
I see a duck. There's a photo of a duck in your book.
They do amazing. On my pansies and my irises are the other crop that slugs love, and easily 70 to 80% decrease in the amount that I have since having my ducks. And they very rarely bother my flowers. So.
Yeah, I think your ducks are Muscovy ducks,
they are.
If the photo is correct.
Correct.
And I often say to people over here, literally yesterday somebody was saying their dahlias had been hammered by slugs, and it turned out they'd got quite a large country garden. I said, you need some runner ducks, because they really are much better than chickens in that they can't scratch and they're just so happy to grub. And if you've got raised beds like you do, the ducks won't jump into the flower beds. They'll just paddle around, and as long as they can dip their heads into a nice bucket of water. And obviously, I have to ask about your sons, because your very successful and beautiful Instagram account is not called Brenna, it's called Three Brothers Bloom. So are your boys interested in gardening? Why did you decide Three Brothers Bloom?
When I first started doing the cut flowers and everything, they were very little. They were with me all the time, obviously through the summer, which is the prime growing season. And they were very involved in it. They were fascinated with the seed sowing and watching the plants come up and helping me, and the composting. And I taught them how to harvest the flowers, all of it. And they would make their own bouquets. And it was my oldest son. He was young. I can't even remember the age at the time, who wanted to do our local farmers market on the island. So I said, well, we can do it, but we need a business name, and you guys are going to have to handle the flowers and talk to the customers. And so they did. So it started as Three Brothers Blooms, because they were it. They were the start of the selling our flowers locally. And obviously they're much older now. My oldest is 18 and has already graduated high school and is moving on. So he's not in the garden as much now, but my middle son, who's now 16, he's a full-time helper. He does the harvesting. He helps me with wedding work prep. He is out there. I can just trust him to do things and not even be home. So he's still very much a part of it. Yeah. And my youngest, he just loves picking flowers. He'll just be out there picking flowers all the time, and he has his favorites. So yeah, it's been nice. I don't think I could ever change the name, even when they grow and leave. No. It's just, that's the start. Name. So thank you.
And do you do the farmers markets every week? Is it a regular thing, or is it seasonal?
The farmers markets here are every week throughout the growing season. We have not done them for the past couple of years, just because of with the book and the pansy trials and how busy we've gotten. But yes, we have wonderful farmers markets out here. And it's nice to see, the revolving flower farmers come through and the new flower farmers getting a start that way. It's a really wonderful way to meet your community and get your flowers out there. Absolutely.
Yeah. I saw you'd been very busy since the book. I think this summer was it Japan you went to look at violas?
I did. That was, oh my goodness, it was amazing. I went to Japan and Italy, both for the purpose of inquiring further about pansies. And when I was in Japan, I met with a pansy hybridizer, and he took me to a cut flower grower in Japan who's been growing for 40 years. And he had just tunnel after tunnel of pansies as cut flowers, and they were taller than my knees. And the whole thing was so fragrant. It was such an amazing experience to see, how they structured their support for them to keep their stems tall. They had 2 layers of support, allowing the stems to lengthen and to stay upright. Wow. The conditions in their tunnels, their growing season, they've had to shift because Japan is now approaching almost a tropical environment in summer. So they've shifted their growing season back. And then they found that the cold weather adds more ruffles to their varieties. So it was really interesting seeing, different countries and how their crops vary there and how they grow them there. And then Italy, that was just incredible meeting with the hybridizers there. They've been doing pansies for 40 years now, easily 40 years, these beautiful varieties. So that was really amazing as well. So yeah, just kind of trying to find the people that are really making headway kind of unnoticed, if you will, with bringing in different varieties and trying to keep the pansy going. I really wanted to meet them and talk to them and see where the pansy could go, where it's headed, and try how can I help that, basically.
I mean, how do you curate not a holiday, because it would have been quite an intensive work trip, but were you just emailing people you'd come across on Instagram, nurseries that you found were growing them in Japan, and saying, can I come in and please see your pansies? Or is there like a pansy network club?
No, I wish there were. There used to be so many pansy associations and things around the world, and I can't find any that are still active. I hope they are, and I just wasn't able to locate them. But it looked like COVID really shut down the last of them. I hope that's not the case.
Really?
But in Japan, I had been trying to get a hold of Mr. Sato for years, and it just finally somehow we connected, and he invited me to come out and see the flowers. So I jumped on that. And then with a company in Italy, my hope in going out there was to try to inquire how we could make their seed more accessible to home growers, because right now their seed is very much to professional growers in very, very large quantities. And I really wanted everybody to be able to grow these varieties. So that was kind of the purpose behind that trip.
And in Japan, are they growing these pansies because if they're so tall, they look a bit similar to orchids? Is that what's driving the fashion to have them? When you say tall, do you mean half a foot? How tall are we talking?
For me, in inches, they're probably 22 to 24 inches in stem length. Wow. They're market bouquets. Yeah, they're exceptional. Gosh. And it's interesting because their pansies are available everywhere. So lots of garden centers, lots of what for us would just be like a home improvement store. They have these exceptional varieties. It's just all these locations. You can just find them everywhere there, which is really incredible, because for me, I can't find exceptional varieties at our hardware stores and our garden stores. You have to really seek them out.
Yeah, and it's same over here in the UK, really. It's a very small, limited group. I mean, your book showcases so many, and they're so beautifully flat laid with gorgeous descriptions. If you could pick, let's say, 3 of your favourites, what would your 3 favourites maybe be?
The 3 favorites would be the Flamenco Terracotta. That's an Italian pansy. It's very similar to Chianti, but it has more of the kind of raspberry and sunsetty streaks in it. I absolutely love that variety. Black pansies are my favorite flower, and probably Black Beauty or Black Prince would be my number 1 favorite black pansy. They have a beautiful shape and they get a very long stem. And then I'm with you in Tiger Eye, the Tiger Eye Red.
Yeah.
Oh, and the smell, it's so fragrant and
It is, isn't it?
so beautiful. Yes, that one would be in my top 3 as well.
God. And do you ever press your pansies? Because I'm obsessed with pressing them for Christmas cards and things.
I do. I press them. I did some bookmarks with them when I pressed them, and I've been trying to do better about saving them to press. I'm still mastering the art of pressing. I don't always succeed, so when I have more time,
there's a lot of wastage.
Yeah.
A lot of wastage.
Yeah, which is sad.
Yeah, it's awful. For every 20 that I put in my press, only 8 will probably make it onto the glue side of things.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I'm sure it has to do with how I'm laying them, or maybe not enough. They're getting, too much moisture. I'm not absorbing enough moisture, but I'll master it eventually. But I love to press them.
So I suppose you've done your pansy Bible. What book possibly might be next? If you want to do another book after this experience?
I am. I'm working on a second book, and I don't get to announce it yet. I hopefully very soon.
No,
yes,
don't announce it
but there
yet,
is. I'm about halfway through a second book, different flower, not the pansy. Because
Well done.
So thank you. Hopefully, I can just keep bringing love to the flowers that I feel are a bit overlooked and all their wonderful attributes. So,
well, this book certainly does, and I'm just going to end with a quote from a friend of the podcast, Becky Crowley, and her quote for your book was: "Brenna champions the future of the pansy, elevating these charming plants to the world of floral artistry, a much needed fresh take on this beautiful but often overlooked genus, a real treasure." And your book is a treasure, and you can find it wherever good books are sold. And of course, you can follow Brenna on her gorgeous Instagram account, Free Brothers Bloom. But thank you so much, Brenna, for talking to me. I feel we could go on and on. We'll have to do another one.
Oh, thank you
and
so much.
arrange another overseas podcast. But good luck with everything you're up to and all your wonderful growing and arranging of this beautiful, beautiful flower.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you so much. What an honor. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Grow Cookie to Range with Arthur Parkinson and Brenna Estrada from Three Brothers Blooms. Next week, it's back to me, joined by Tom Stimpson, and we're going to start a new series that's going to run a long way through the winter on the 12 best plants for different areas of the garden. Next week, we're starting with the all-important year-round garden structural plants. So, see you then. You can find more information, photos and advice sheets on all the plants and recipes we talk about on this podcast by heading to the show notes or at sarahraven.com/podcast.